The global trade order is starting to fracture. What once seemed like a tightly woven web of interdependence is now unraveling, thread by thread. And the latest tear? It's coming from the dinner plate. Nowhere is this more obvious than in the intensifying food fight between the United States and China, two economic giants locked in a simmering standoff that's now boiling over into agriculture. Beijing's abrupt ban on American beef, we're talking about a staggering 150,000 tons of meat, isn't just a trade decision. It's a warning shot, a signal that China is willing to weaponize its market access to push back against US pressure. And this isn't just about steaks and hamburgers, it's about livelihoods, supply chains, and the delicate balance of global food systems. When beef becomes a bargaining chip, it's not just dinner that's at stake, it's diplomacy. This is about power, leverage, and the future of food security in a world that's already teetering on the edge, from climate shocks to war-driven shortages. The beef ban is a symptom of a much larger disease, the politicization of food. China's message? It's loud, clear, and calculated. America's reliance on economic coercion, sanctions, tariffs, tech bans, will be met with strategic retaliation. And this time, it's hitting the heartland. The beef ban isn't random. It's a precision strike, aimed at a politically sensitive sector, American agriculture. It's designed to hurt rural economies, stir domestic unrest, and remind Washington that China has cards to play too. This is a high-stakes game of chess, where every move is strategic, every piece matters, and the board is global. And with each passing day, the stakes aren't just getting higher, they're getting personal. Across the American heartland, there's a chill in the air. And it's not just the weather, it's a growing sense of unease, a storm brewing on the economic horizon. Cattle ranchers already grappling with years of drought, rising feed prices, and labor shortages are now staring down a nightmare scenario: the sudden loss of their biggest and most lucrative export market, China. In Nebraska, feedlots are overflowing with unsold cattle, with nowhere to go and no buyers in sight. Down in Texas, ranchers are making heartbreaking decisions, culling herds they've spent years raising, just to stay afloat. This is devastating, says John Smith, a third-generation rancher from Montana. We've weathered tough times before, but this feels different. We depend on the Chinese market. Without it, many of us won't survive the year. It's not just about business, it's about our way of life. The numbers tell the story. In 2024 alone, the US exported nearly $1 billion worth of beef to China. That's not just a statistic, it's the backbone of thousands of rural economies. This ban threatens to wipe that out overnight, sending shockwaves through small towns already on the brink. Families are now sitting around kitchen tables, crunching numbers, wondering how they'll make it through the next season. For many, the future has never looked more uncertain. This isn't just an agricultural crisis, it's shaping up to be an economic and social crisis too. As farms close, businesses shutter, and communities shrink, the ripple effects could be felt far beyond the ranch. So, to really get what's going on here, we've got to look beyond the pasture. China's beef ban? It's not just about meat, it's a direct response to a string of aggressive US trade actions. The Biden administration's tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, and its restrictions on rare earth mineral exports. Yeah, those moves have infuriated Beijing. China sees this as economic warfare, says Dr. Li Wei, a leading trade expert at Peking University. They are sending a clear message: you cannot target our strategic industries without consequences. This beef ban is a surgical strike, aimed squarely at a sector where the US truly has a lot to lose. But it's also a calculated gamble. China is betting that the economic pain hitting American farmers will translate into political pressure on the Biden administration to, well, back off. As the US pulls back from key global markets, Russia is, quite frankly, stepping in, and doing so with remarkable speed and strategic intent. In the vacuum left by shifting American trade policies, Moscow has found a golden opportunity to expand its influence, especially in the East. Fast. Moscow has been quick to seize the opportunity left behind by the American beef ban, ramping up exports to China at a pretty astonishing pace. In just a few years, Russia has gone from a minor player in the global beef trade to a rising heavyweight, with shipments to China increasing by double digits annually. New rail corridors, funded in part by Chinese investment, now stretch across the massive Eurasian landmass, moving Russian beef from the Siberian steppes straight into Chinese supermarkets. These railways are more than just transport routes, they're arteries of a new economic alliance, pumping goods, capital, and influence between the two nations. This is a game-changer for Russia, says Ivan Ivanov, a senior fellow at the Moscow State Institute of International Relations. We're not just exporting meat, he explains. We're exporting stability, reliability, and a new model of cooperation that doesn't rely on the West. China is a massive market, the world's largest consumer of meat, and we are in a prime position to meet their growing demand for protein. With rising incomes and urbanization, Chinese consumers are hungry for high-quality, safe, and traceable food products. Russian beef, once overlooked, is now filling that gap. But let's be real. This isn't just about beef. It's about a broader agricultural push. Russia is also exporting grain, poultry, and dairy, positioning itself as a reliable food supplier in a world increasingly shaped by geopolitical uncertainty and supply chain disruptions. Russia is using agricultural exports as a strategic tool, not just to earn revenue but to deepen its alliance with China and cut down its dependence on the West. These trade deals are about more than food. They're about forging a new economic order, one where Moscow and Beijing set the terms. More and more, the two countries are doing business in their own currencies, bypassing the US dollar and bit by bit, chipping away at the foundation of the Western-led financial system. This shift isn't just symbolic, it's a deliberate move toward financial sovereignty, and it's gaining momentum. Back home, Russian farmers are seeing the benefits. Government subsidies, improved infrastructure, and access to new markets are revitalizing rural economies. What started as a response to sanctions is now a long-term strategy, one that's reshaping Russia's role in the global food chain. And in China, Russian beef is no longer a novelty. It's becoming a trusted brand. With traceability tech and quality controls in place, consumers are warming up to the idea of Russian meat on their dinner tables. It's a quiet revolution, but one with massive implications for global trade. So, the United States isn't the only one caught up in this geopolitical food fight. Traditional beef exporters like Australia and Argentina are also, well, really feeling the squeeze. Both nations have been hit with a tough combination: Chinese import restrictions on one side, and rising competition from Russia on the other. We are caught in the crossfire, says Carlos Rodriguez, an Argentine rancher and agricultural economist. The Chinese market is becoming increasingly difficult to access, and the Russians are undercutting us on price. And things are especially tough for Australia. The country has already weathered a string of trade disputes with China over the past few years. This latest beef ban just adds to the pressure, really underscoring the risks of depending too heavily on a single trading partner. Russia's beef offensive is part of a broader strategy to become a global agricultural superpower. The Kremlin is pouring billions of dollars into agricultural subsidies, infrastructure projects, and research and development, with an eye on dominating global food markets. Food is the new oil, proclaims Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia, in a recent speech. And Russia will be the world's leading supplier. From wheat to fertilizer to sunflower oil, Russia is rapidly expanding its agricultural footprint. The beef ban is just the tip of the iceberg, a harbinger of things to come as Russia seeks to leverage its vast natural resources and geopolitical alliances to reshape the global food system in its favor. The beef ban is also accelerating the de-dollarization of global trade. China and Russia are increasingly conducting bilateral trade in their own currencies, bypassing the US dollar and reducing their exposure to the American financial system. The era of the dollar's dominance is coming to an end, predicts Sergei Glaziev, minister in charge of integration and macroeconomics of the Eurasian Economic Commission. The future belongs to a multipolar world with multiple reserve currencies. The shift away from the dollar is a long-term trend, but the beef ban is hastening its arrival. As more countries seek to reduce their reliance on the US dollar, the greenback's status as the world's reserve currency is increasingly called into question. The beef ban is a microcosm of a much larger geopolitical struggle. At stake is not just the future of the global food system, but the balance of power in the 21st century. We are witnessing a fundamental shift in the global order, observes Dr. Kishore Mahbubani, distinguished fellow at the National University of Singapore's Asia Research Institute. The West's dominance is waning, and a new multipolar world is emerging. In this new world, food security will be paramount. Countries that control the production and distribution of food will wield immense power. The beef ban is a stark reminder that the US can no longer take its global dominance for granted. The beef ban should serve as a wake-up call for American policymakers. The US risks locking itself out of Asia's largest and fastest-growing protein market. If this trend continues, the economic and geopolitical consequences for the US could be profound. The Biden administration must find a way to de-escalate trade tensions with China and re-engage with the global community. Failure to do so will have dire consequences, not just for American farmers, but for the future of the global order. The world is watching, and the stakes could not be higher. As the United States grapples with the fallout from China's beef ban, another major player is quietly stepping into the spotlight: Brazil. The South American agricultural giant, already one of the world's top beef exporters, sees a golden opportunity to expand its foothold in China's protein-hungry market. With American beef sidelined and Chinese demand remaining sky-high, Brazil is ramping up production, fast-tracking trade agreements, and investing in infrastructure to meet Beijing's growing appetite. Brazilian meatpacking giants like JBS and Marfrig are already increasing shipments, while government officials are negotiating new sanitary protocols to ease trade friction with China. Pause 2S. But it's not just about volume, it's about positioning. Brazilian beef producers are marketing themselves as reliable, politically neutral partners, capitalizing on the growing rift between Washington and Beijing. In a world where food security is becoming a tool of diplomacy, Brazil is playing the long game. Pause 2S. Still, challenges loom. Environmental concerns over Amazon deforestation and global scrutiny of Brazil's sustainability practices could dampen its ambitions. Yet, for now, Brazil is seizing the moment, filling the vacuum left by the US and redefining the balance of power in the global beef trade. Pause 2S. The message is clear: where one door closes, another opens, and Brazil is already walking through it. As beef trade routes shift across continents, a new question looms large. What's the environmental cost of this global protein shuffle? Pause 2S. With Russia ramping up exports to China and Brazil doubling down on production, the carbon footprint of international beef is expanding faster than ever. But unlike tariffs or trade deals, this cost isn't paid in dollars. It's paid in emissions, deforestation, and ecological disruption. Russia's agricultural push into the Far East may look like a geopolitical win, but it comes with heavy environmental baggage. To meet China's demand, vast tracts of Siberian land are being converted into pasture and feed crop zones. This not only disrupts fragile ecosystems but also releases significant amounts of carbon from previously undisturbed soils. And with Russia facing fewer environmental regulations than Western exporters, the long-term impact remains uncertain. Meanwhile, Brazil's beef boom raises its own red flags. Satellite imagery shows rising deforestation in the Amazon and Cerrado regions, driven in part by cattle ranching. While Brazil promises to balance growth with sustainability, critics argue that global demand is outpacing regulation. Even China's role is complex. By diversifying suppliers, Beijing reduces reliance on any single source, but it also increases the logistical footprint of its food imports, with longer shipping routes and higher emissions. As nations use beef as a tool of diplomacy, the planet absorbs the hidden cost. The new beef order might redraw the map of global trade, but it could also deepen the climate crisis. In the race to feed the world, we must ask, at what environmental price? As global beef trade tilts eastward, American ranchers aren't just watching from the sidelines, they're fighting back from Capitol Hill. Pause 2S. With exports to China drying up and competitors like Russia and Brazil gaining ground, U.S. beef producers are ramping up lobbying efforts to regain their footing in the global market. Pause 2S. At the heart of the push is a coalition of agricultural lobbyists, trade groups like the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and state-level farm bureaus. Their message to Washington is clear: without swift action, America risks losing not just market share, but long-term influence in global food diplomacy. So what's on the table? First, there's a push for new trade agreements, bilateral deals with emerging markets like Vietnam, India, and even African nations. These deals aim to open up alternative export channels for U.S. beef, bypassing the Chinese market altogether. Pause 2S. Second, producers are calling for increased subsidies and tax breaks to help them weather the storm. Some proposals include federal incentives for sustainable ranching practices, aimed at making American beef more competitive in eco-conscious global markets. Pause 2S. Third, there's a growing call to confront China more directly. Some lawmakers are floating retaliatory tariffs or restrictions on Chinese agricultural imports, hoping to pressure Beijing into lifting its beef ban. But such moves risk escalating trade tensions that could backfire on other sectors. Pause 2S. Behind the scenes, think tanks and policy advisors are crafting a longer-term strategy, one that blends climate goals with trade competitiveness. Could the U.S. lead the world in low-carbon beef exports? Some believe that's the path forward. Pause 2S. One thing is clear: the beef lobby isn't going quietly. With millions of dollars in campaign contributions and deep ties to rural America, they're betting that political muscle can still move the needle. Pause 2S. In this high-stakes game of meat and might, U.S. producers are making one last charge to prove that American beef still belongs on the global table. As China slams the door on American beef, its neighbors are quietly redrawing their own maps of meat diplomacy. Across Asia, countries like Vietnam, South Korea, and even the Philippines are rethinking where their beef comes from and what that means for their economies, their people, and their place in the global supply chain. Pause 2S. In Vietnam, demand for beef is surging alongside rising middle-class incomes. Pause 2S. Traditionally reliant on Australia and the US, Vietnamese importers are now diversifying, striking new agreements with South American suppliers and even eyeing Russian beef as a low-cost alternative. Pause 2S. Government trade officials are working overtime to ensure food security while hedging against geopolitical risk. Pause 2S. Meanwhile, in South Korea, a country that imports over 70% of its beef, the calculus is more strategic. Pause 2S. With China's ban creating market distortions, Seoul is quietly increasing its American beef purchases, taking advantage of discounted prices and reaffirming its trade alliance with Washington. Pause 2S. But it's not just about economics. Pause 2S. With tensions rising in the Indo-Pacific, aligning food supply chains with political allies is becoming a national security imperative. Pause 2S. Elsewhere in the region, countries are exploring regional beef pacts, aiming to create an intra-Asian supply web that's less dependent on any one superpower. Pause 2S. Think Indian buffalo meat in Indonesia, or Thai processing plants handling Brazilian imports for regional distribution. Pause 2S. What's emerging is a complex, decentralized beef economy in Asia, one where agility and alignment matter as much as price and quality. Pause 2S. For American producers, this shifting landscape offers both a warning and an opportunity: adapt fast or get left behind. Pause 2S. In the shadow of China's beef ban, Asia isn't just reacting, it's recalibrating. Pause 2S. And in the process, it may redefine the future of protein power in the Pacific. As the dust settles from China's seismic beef ban, one question looms larger than any trade deal or tariff. Is this the beginning of a permanent realignment in global food power? For decades, the global beef trade followed predictable paths. American ranches fed Asian households, South American cattle powered European markets, and Australia served as the protein bridge between East and West. But those arteries are now shifting, and fast. What we're witnessing isn't just a temporary reshuffling, it could be the foundation of a new geopolitical protein map. A world where beef isn't just a commodity, but a chess piece in a broader game of influence, alliances, and resilience. With Russia deepening agricultural ties with China and Brazil expanding its footprint in Asia and the Middle East, the traditional dominance of Western exporters is under pressure. Meanwhile, countries once seen as mere consumers, like India, Thailand, and Indonesia, are stepping into roles as processors, distributors, and even re-exporters. The rise of regional trade blocs, digital agriculture platforms, and alternative logistics corridors, think Arctic shipping lanes or overland Eurasian rail, means that beef can now flow in ways unimaginable just a decade ago. But the real wild card? Climate. As global temperatures rise and droughts intensify, the very geography of livestock production may shift. Countries with stable water supplies and cooler climates could emerge as unexpected protein powerhouses, while traditional exporters may be forced to pivot or perish. In this new era, food security isn't just about what you grow. It's about who you trust, how fast you can pivot, and whether your supply chains can survive the next shock. For American beef producers, the message is clear. The age of guaranteed dominance is over. The future belongs to the agile, the strategic, and the globally minded. The beef ban may have been the spark, but what's unfolding now is nothing short of a global protein revolution, and the world's dinner plate may never look the same again.